All right, this is my first attempt at a booktube video. I thought I might begin with a bit of a bang. Bearing in mind that the new Dune film will at some point be coming out soon, I thought I might start things off with a review slash dismantling of a book that is unbelievably well known and unbelievably overpraised, and that would be, of course, Frank Herbert's Dune. Now, in the 1930s, Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. Now, with hindsight comes 2020. We know now, of course, that Hitler was, evil, terrible, a monster, all of those things, and many more. However, people didn't always know that, especially Germans. In the 1930s, Hitler was able to convince millions of people that he was amazing, terrific, the greatest thing since sliced bread. They didn't realize at the time how terrible he really was. And Dune, my friends, is the Adolf Hitler of science fiction novels. It is objectively terrible in almost every way, and yet people adore it. I call these people Dune Nazis because they will practically fight you if you have the audacity to disparage in any way this massively and undeservedly loved book. So I already know this video, the first video, is going to get downvoted to hell and back. And, I don't care because this needs to be said. Dune has so many problems to be as loved as it is. Like, I'm sorry if Dune is your favorite book, because I know it's a lot of people's favorite book. And, heaven knows I have a lot of books that mean a lot to me that have lots of things wrong with them. And I'm not trying to take Dune away from you if you love Dune. A lot of people love Dune. Mike at Mike's Book Reviews, Dune is his favorite book. And I love Mike. Mike's a great booktuber, one of the best. And he also seems like a really great guy. But Mike, sadly, is a Dune Nazi. He has been brought under the sway of this book that is really, really thick, but yet should be really, really thin because there's really not that much to it when you boil it down. Not in terms of world building, but in terms of what the book actually tries to say and fails to say. Dune, I've never seen a book as praised and as loved and as adored as Dune is, and yet it deserves almost none of it. So let's break it down with what's actually wrong with Dune. To begin with, the writing, and this is actually the part that I have the least problems with. The writing in Dune is not overly bad. It's not overly good. It's nothing to write home about. But there's nothing overtly wrong with it. It's plain, uninspired. It's never going to be pointed at like, Shakespeare. It's the words just get the story across, and that's pretty much it. There are some clumsy parts in it, especially when he uses onomatopoeia sometimes, which I'm against. I don't think authors should really use that except with noises. But Herbert uses it with what they say, and there's places in the book where people scream or yell or something, and he, instead of just drawing the word out by adding more letters, he puts in dashes in it, which is really weird, and it makes it like one person says ah, or it's something like that at some point, but instead it looks like because it's written clumsily, and apparently he didn't know not to do that. But okay, so the writing I don't really have that much trouble with. It's there. It's not great. It's not bad. I've certainly read books that are written worse just in terms of prose than Dune. So, I'll give that, the writing, I'll give that a C. It's not great, but it's not that bad. So that's the least of the problems I have with Dune. Let's talk now about the characters, because the character is pretty much the most important part of a book, or it should be, at least. And bearing that in mind, I don't understand how people can honestly defend Dune, because Dune has some of the worst characters I've ever read in any book, ever. Like the same people that condemn the Disney Star Wars movies because Rey is a Mary Sue are the same people that will defend Dune when Paul is the Mary Sue to end all Mary Sues. I'm sorry, but he is. There is not a single character in this book that can in any way be called relatable, well developed, let alone likable. And Paul is the worst offender. There, there, there is no words to describe how poor the main character of this book is. Literally, he's like a robot. No, he's not. That's an insult to robots. He's like a clockwork toy. He's like Woody in Toy Story. You could pull a string on his back and he'll say some words. That's pretty much it. There's nothing that he can't do. Look. I'll just put it this way: when you have a 16, I think he's like 16 in the book. It's been a while since I read it. You'll have to let me slide that. But if you have a 16-year-old child that becomes emperor of the universe at the end of your book, you have the ultimate Mary Sue. I'm sorry, but that's just a fact. Paul Atreides, however you pronounce his name, is an unbelievably bad character. At the end of the book, Chani, however you pronounce his wife's name, tells him that their 2-year-old child has just been killed in the war or battle or whatever it is they're doing. And his reaction is basically just like, oh, well, hate it when that happens. Tough. Gotta move on, I guess. Like, can you understand that's how I want to reach back through time and grab Frank Herbert by the lapels and shake him and say, can you understand that that's not a human reaction? That's not how anybody would react except a complete psychopath, which I guess you could say Paul is, because as I'm given to understand it, the sequels do kind of go in a darker direction. I have no interest in reading the sequels because this one was enough to satisfy me that Herbert was a crap writer. And that's not to say that I dislike Herbert. I actually like him more as a person than I do as a writer, because he was a pretty smart guy. He said some things, particularly pertaining to government and politics, that I actually happen to really agree with. So I actually like Herbert as a person, but as a writer, he was so untalented that he didn't. I mean, the writing is just, like I said, to convey the story and nothing else. There's no poetry to it. There's no flair. There's no pizzazz. There's nothing to it other than just conveying action and dialogue, and that poorly. Because, oh my word, the dialogue in this book, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to really make me truly, honestly cringe when I read a book. And Dune is, until now, the only book that's ever done it. Dune physically made me cringe at some parts when I was reading the dialogue, because the way these characters speak and the way that they switch between modern English and Shakespearean era English when they need to sound profound is pathetic. Like when they need to start saying something that Herbert was trying to throw in some kind of wisdom or make a point, their speech changes gosh, I mean, look, Dune is what Herbert tried to do with Dune is basically write the Bible in space. I mean, that's what it is. It tries so hard, and that's why it's so intellectually shallow. I see people quote this book all the time like it's some kind of paragon of wisdom. It's not. It's intellectually shallow because every idea that's in this book is just ripped right out of the Bible and the Quran. And I mean, he just pulls the every point that he tries to make out of older texts, older religious texts, and that's why Dune reads so incredibly painfully. Like the line, thy woman is thy field. Oh gosh, like, ugh. I mean, no, Herbert, no, that the stupidity of that line, that's something that you would hear in like the Old Testament, and I get it because that's what he wanted to make this book. That's why the society in Dune is basically just Old Testament society in space, because and Paul is literally the Messiah in space, because that's just what he wanted to do. And so Dune is, I mean, so many people quote this thing like the fear is the mind killer quote. I mean, okay, that's a decent quote, I get it, but it's just all the chapter heading. And by the way, that's the stupidest decision that Herbert could have made. I don't understand why you want to spoil the book. Literally at page one, you spoil the ending. So what is the purpose of even reading the entire thing when you tell us that Paul's going to win and become emperor within the first chapter, basically? But you open these chapters with these incredibly cringeworthy quotations that are out of, I don't know, it's basically just the Bible reworded poorly. Because one chapter starts with something Paul saying that the mistakes of the ancestors are visited on the descendants or something, which is basically just the sins of the father part out of the Bible that he reworded and then tried to pass it off like, look how smart I am. It's cringy. I mean, it's the dialogue is horrible. When they're not just trying to discuss like what they're going to do, and he tries to wax philosophical, it just gets painful to read. I mean, painful to read. So I mean, the characters are awful. The dialogue makes you want to vomit reading it because it's like something. It's like a reject, like a line that they cut out of the Bible because they're like, no, this is too bad. We don't want this in here. So Herbert like found this ancient apocryphal tome of rejected biblical scripture that he tried to work into his book, and it's just bad because that's what he wanted so badly, is to make Dune be like some kind of space Bible. That's what it is. He modeled the society of the book. Now I will give him this: the world building in Dune is actually pretty cool. The spice thing, that's cool. The politics, that's cool. But the society, the way that everything is structured, and what the book tries to say, all the little tidbits of wisdom. You can't see me, but I'm air quoting around that sarcastically. The wisdom that it tries to impart is just ripped out of the Quran and the Bible, because I mean everything that Dune says has been said numerous times previously and much better because it's not cringy and awful. But now to give Dune why Dune deserves a little bit of praise, a modicum of praise. And I'm going to give it to Dune. Dune, there is genuine ambition behind Dune. Now, I think it misses the mark in virtually every single category. The characters are terrible. The dialogue is atrocious. The world building is pretty good, I'll give it that. But what Dune tried to do, and what it did kind of succeed at doing, is bring a greater sense of legitimacy to the science fiction genre. Dune came out, I believe it was 1965. Anyway, it was right in there, right coming off the heels of the golden age of science fiction, which is, Arthur C. Clarke, Robert Heinlein, all those cats. But science fiction was not regarded as a serious genre of literature. It wasn't. It is now, barely. I mean, it had to claw its way out of the pits of Dune to get to where it is now. But it is now more or less regarded as a legitimate genre of serious literature. And Dune did, in a way, aid in that. And I'll give it credit. I'll give the devil his due. Dune did aid in lifting science fiction out of the gutter. Because Dune is probably one of the first science fiction books that really tried to be like political, seriously political, where it's like political intrigue and different houses trying to get power and everything. And I get it, and I should tip my hat to that because there is genuine ambition behind that. And Herbert really tried, not necessarily succeeded, but he tried to do something with his book. And so I'll give it credit. But there's a caveat here. Dune needs to be praised for helping raise science fiction out of the literary slum that it resided in at the time Dune was written. Dune does not need to be at all held aloft as an example of genuinely accomplished writing or genuine literature, because it's not. Dune is a middling to poor book across the entire spectrum. The world building, again, is pretty commendable. The writing is passable, but the characters are terrible. It's intellectually shallow because he just recycles crap out of the Bible and the Quran and religious texts and tries to pass it off as his own words of wisdom. And the dialogue is terrible. I mean, it really is. I get why people kind of like this book because it kind of feels profound if you're not really familiar with any of the things that went into Dune in the ways, and if you're not really attuned to just how clunky the dialogue is, and if you're just blind, I mean, you have to be blind to not recognize how awful the characters are. The characters, I can't stress how poor the characters are. And the Dune is not a book. I'm shocked that Dune is still praised like it is, considering in the current PC culture in which we live, because the villain in Dune is the worst kind of character. I mean, he's morbidly obese, he's gay, that's the key thing here. Herbert was obviously making some kind of derogatory comment on homosexuality there, because the villain is gay, he's fat, he molests children, he talks like something out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. It's just bad. And again, I'm not trying to take Dune away if you love it, but I don't want you. I can't stand to hear people praise this book like it's just on a level with the Brothers Karamazov or War and Peace or something like that. I can't stand when people praise this book unduly, because it's not. It doesn't. It everything it has to offer is because it hit right at the right time, and helps lift the genre up based on what it tried to do, but not on what it succeeded doing. Because again, it fails on most levels. So that brings me to the question: do I think the new film, which is directed by Denis Villeneuve, do I think that movie will be good? Well, I think in comparison to the David Lynch movie, yeah, it probably will, because that was complete dog shit, and it wasn't even true to the book. Which I mean, if you start with shit, you gotta stick with shit. If you're gonna adapt Dune, don't try to not be Dune. You gotta go with it. So I think the new movie can be a good movie, but I think it will be a good movie in spite of its source material and not because of it. Because if you wrote, I mean, if you made the movie just like the book, where Paul is told at the end of the book that his child has just been killed, and he's just like, oh well, I hate it when that happens. Sorry. I mean, that's not in any way a human reaction. So I think they're going to make some changes based on the characters because they have to. You know, Villeneuve has already said, or Rebecca Ferguson has already said, that they're going to change the dynamics of the Jessica character to give her more agency in the story. Which, you know, I don't really care because I don't have any investment in Dune. I may see the movie or wait till I can rent it. I don't know. But if it does succeed, it will be in spite of its source material and not because of it. Because I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but Dune's just not really that great. It's bad in very many ways. I mean, and Dune came out in 1965. That's within 2 or 3 years of Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. And that book is 10 times the book Dune is. It actually has original things to say about free love, about sexual dynamics, gender dynamics, and about, society in general, about how, in particular, how American 1950s society viewed these kind of things. So I don't understand. I mean, I'm not saying that book doesn't get praised because it absolutely does, but Dune is the quintessential science fiction novel. There, it seems like to me, it's the one whenever science fiction is discussed, Dune seems to be the top of the list as this is it. This is what it has to offer. And if Dune is the best that the entire genre has to offer, then the genre sucks. And I know it doesn't suck because I love science fiction. I just don't like Dune. I don't hate Dune because, again, it helped the genre. It did. But I don't like Dune on its own merits because it has no merits. It's a poorly written book in so many ways. And again, I know this video, if anybody, the few people that I'm anticipating watches this, it's going to get downvoted to hell and back, and I don't care. I mean, if you love it, let me know. Let me know down there in the comments if you think obviously, if you love it, you're going to say I'm wrong, but you can't deny that the characters. You can't deny that the characters are terrible. You can't deny that the dialogue is cringy. Again, thy woman is thy field. Gosh, that just sounds. Why don't you just rip out "Let there be light"? And it hurts to read something that bad. If you love it, you're going to defend it. I'm probably not going to change any minds with this, but I think it does need to be said that Dune is ridiculously overrated because there are so many books, and again with the Heinlein's book came out around the same time, and it was so much better than Dune. The characters were actually human. Granted, the writing wasn't that great either, but the characters were human. The dialogue didn't make you want to vomit. It's just there's so many books better than Dune, and I think Dune just needs to be. It doesn't need to be put on the pedestal that it is on. It needs to be put on a pedestal like in a museum to say this is what we came from. This was the beginning. This helped. It doesn't need to get the praise and adulation that it does because it doesn't deserve it. Now again, I don't hate Frank Herbert. I don't hate Frank Herbert at all. I like him actually as a person. He was a very smart guy when it came to looking at society and looking at the way that we humans view our leaders. He was pretty perceptive in that regard, and I respect that, but he wasn't much of a writer. I'm sorry if I'm bursting your bubble, but he's not. He was good at coming up with concepts and building the world that Dune inhabits, and that's commendable, but the rest of it just is so shallow and flat. I don't understand how this book still gets as much praise as it does. But let me know. Again, you're gonna say, "Oh, you're retarded. This is the greatest book. You're just so wrong." Yeah, oh yeah. You like a person being told that their child has been killed and then just shrugging it off. Like that's really a legitimate realistic character trait. No, it's not. And the characters are all wooden. It's just so poor, and it just doesn't deserve the praise it gets. I was gonna donate the copy that you're seeing right now to Goodwill, but I kept it because I wanted to do this review, and because I want it on my shelf. So when I diss it and people say, "Well, I doubt you've ever even read it," yes, I have read it, and sadly, that's about a week of my life that I won't get back. So, in summation, Dune is the Adolf Hitler of science fiction books. It maliciously enthralls people into its shadow when it doesn't. It's not good. It's not evil. I guess likening it to Hitler is a little harsh, but it's not evil. But it's not good. Like it's not good, guys. It's not. It's the people that worship at the shrine of Dune are the Dune Nazis. They are, because they're so brainwashed that even when you point out the flaws, like I hope I have, they won't. Oh, you're stupid. You just don't get the genius of it. I mean, yeah, I get the genius. I've read the Bible. Trust me, everything that Dune has to say, you can find in there. It's not original. It's not unique. It just happened to come out at the right time and have a kind of quasi air of seriousness about it that it got through. I should point out that Dune was passed on by so many publishers until it was eventually published by a company that produced automotive manuals. Yeah, that's how much confidence people had in it. Now, granted, obviously, it's now one of the best. I think it is the best-selling science fiction novel ever, but it's because people they lionize it based on a false sense of uh, profundity, I guess. Because everything it says has been said previously and better. The story is, well, he spoils the story in the first chapter. Every chapter opens with massive spoilers that tell you how it's going to end. I don't understand the logic of that at all. But so, yes, I've rambled long enough. In summation, Dune is the Hitler of science fiction novels because so many people worship it. They might as well just have the name tattooed on them because they're the Dune Nazis. They love it. You're never gonna open their eyes and see how bad it really is. But I don't want to hate. Everybody has their taste. I've got plenty of books that I love that are objectively bad, but the difference is that I admit that they're bad. I just love it because I just love the books that I love because of sentimental reasons or because it spoke to me in a certain way. And look, if Dune spoke to you on a deep level, more power to you. Don't let me take that away. But I would ask you to explain what exactly it said to you that touched you so, because it doesn't really say that much. It doesn't say nearly as much that people think it does. So, yeah, again, Dune is basically Hitler, and people that love it are just the Dune Nazis, and I'm anticipating so many downvotes. I'm anticipating so many downvotes of whoever eventually sees this video. But bring it on. Fight me. This is a hill I'm going to die on. I've already died on it many times. And, I respawn at the bottom just to get, hacked to pieces by the Dune Nazis again because they won't give it up, even though it's objectively flawed and poorly written. But, whatever. I love books that are bad. You can love books that are bad, but just please don't try to puff these books up more than they deserve because Dune is not that great. It's pretty bad. So yeah, Dune is Hitler of the science fiction community because it's bad and yet it hypnotizes and mesmerizes people into wrongly loving it. So yeah, that's my rant for today. Peace.